going to be doing heat treatment on our geometry bar specimens. And in the second week, we're going to be testing the hardness of those specimens and seeing how heat treatment changed the hardness of that steel. What I want to talk about is the cooling chart for steel. And so they have these charts for all different kinds of metals, and for each grade of steel, there's a different chart. Here we have these lines of constant cooling rates, and the faster you cool your steel, the more martensite crystal structure you'll have. And so there's this critical cooling rate where faster than that cooling rate, you'll have full martensite, and slower cooling rates, you'll have different crystal structures. So you'll have a mix of martensite and perlite, and then as you slow cool and cooler, you'll get these different crystal structures. And for example, two of the steel specimens that we are using, 1080 and 4340, the 1080 requires a very fast cooling of 140 Celsius per second in order to have full martensite, versus the 4340, which has a different carbon content, only requires 8 Celsius per second in order to have full martensite. So these different steels have different carbon contents, and these carbon contents have a very significant impact on how you have to heat treat them in order to have certain desired crystal structures in your steel. And so with the geometry bar today, what we're going to be doing is we will have this geometry bar specimen, and there will be a spout of water at the bottom. And so at the bottom here, we will have this quenched cooling rate, which will be very fast. And at the top, it'll be air cooled. And so it'll cool much slower at the top. And so if we kind of overlay our geometry bar here, at the bottom where we have this quenched cooling rate, we're going to have martensitic crystal structure. And as we traverse the geometry bar, we're going to have a mix of martensite and perlite, and then pure perlite. And so the geometry bar is going to have a spectrum of crystal structures. And then next week, when we use the hardness tester, the Rockwell hardness machine, we will see how these different crystal structures have different hardnesses. And so for this first week, we're just going to be doing the heat treatment. Our geometry tank. As you can see, we have this crossbar here with a bore bolt out. And then down here, this is the spigot. And so what we will do is turn the sink on, get some water coming out, a little more, and then we'll take a hot specimen out of the oven, drop it in, add some more water, and then get a thermocouple on. Turn the water up to heating. And then what you'll see is these flakes starting to form on the outside of the specimen. And some of those will flake off. And what that is just carbon. So this is basically just graphite. As the carbon is forced out of the crystal lattice of the steel and then cools, the carbon forms this graphite, which flakes off. And this is a thermocouple, which is going out to the computer and logging the cooling of our specimen.
Alright, so this is the Geometry lab. We're about to take a specimen out and put it into the tank.
Super hot.
So we can see the carbon starting to cool on that outer edge at the bottom, and then that will flake off. You can see the flakes in the bottom of the tank. And then over here we have the temperature logger recording that cooling rate.